Bandages from Hot Hot Heat. Far too hot for the BBC to play during wartime because, well, they're just so concerned about people's feelings. Back in a second with a look at one of the most important years in the history of rock, 1977.
More of the secret history of rock coming up. Back to the secret history of rock with Alan Cross.
Once in a generation or so, there's a watershed year where everything in music seems to change very suddenly. 1955 with the debut of Elvis, 1964 with the Beatles and the British invasion, and then there's 1977. Some music historians will go as far as to say that the real story of rock, the history of rock, ends with that year. Everything that's happened since has just been derivative and recycling of old sounds. I'm not sure about that, but what is true is that 1977 was a pivotal year. Up until that point, popular music was divided into rock, pop, country, and R&B. Each had its own subflavors, but it was rather easy to group and categorize things. But in 1977, things began to fracture along many different fault lines. Funk broke further away from R&B. Part of funk mated with pop, and it manifested itself in disco. And you either loved disco or you hated it. Country music had been around long enough for it to begin to separate into old traditional country and a new generation of country performers who were a little more progressive with their sound. And that caused problems between the purists and the progressives. And rock, which had been stratifying into many different layers since at least 1967, began to separate into more tribes than ever before. And some of these tribes were at war with each other. A new thing called punk had declared war on mainstream rock. And again, like disco, you either loved punk or you hated it. It was all very, very polarizing, and there were many forks in the rock and roll road in 1977.